As a service to schools, C-SPAN airs Short Subject, a 10-minute program each Tuesday beginning at 1 a.m. Eastern Time. Short Subjects are educational vignettes that explain how government works and look at personalities and issues in the news. Short Subject is one of the educational services of C-SPAN in the Classroom, a free membership program designed to help teachers use C-SPAN as a learning tool. Watch for Short Subject, Tuesdays, beginning at 1 a.m. Eastern Time on C-SPAN. C-SPAN is the cable television industry's public affairs network. Since 1979, C-SPAN has provided audiences an inside look at the democratic process. If you have a comment about our network, please write. Our address is C-SPAN, 400 North Capitol Street, Northwest, Suite 650. In Washington, D.C., the zip code is 20001.
Up next, a discussion of a possible Palestinian agenda at the Bush-Gorbachev summit. It's sponsored by the Foreign Correspondents Association. You will hear from Abdul Salam Mazura, president of the Foreign Correspondents Association, along with members of the Palestine National Council and the Israeli Parliament.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Abdul Salam Mazura. I'm president of the Foreign Correspondents Association. I welcome you for this special briefing by an Israeli Arab and by a Palestinian American about a couple of questions we try to answer this afternoon. Mr. Abdel Wahab Darawshe, who is a member of the Israeli Parliament, the Knesset, he is the founder of the Democratic Arab Party. I put it in the invitation, Arab Democratic Party, but Democratic Arab or Arab Democratic, it's all the same. Mr. Darawshe was born in Ksal, the village of Ksal next to Nazareth. He finished high school in Nazareth, and he graduated from here, the Haifa University, and worked for 21 years in the Ministry of Education as a teacher. And you have the resume or the curriculum vitae passing it on. He founded this party, the Arab Democratic Party, after the outbreak of the Intifada, the Palestinian uprising. He left the Labour Party, where he used to be a member, and established the Arab Democratic Party, and he was re-elected to the Knesset on that slate of the party in 1988. He is a member of the Knesset Labor and Social Welfare Committee and Internal Affairs and Environment Committee. He is a member of the Committee for Arab Affairs in Israel, which called on the 20th of this month for a general strike in solidarity with the Palestinians from the Gaza Strip who were killed by an Israeli in Rishon LeZion. And my other guest on this podium today, Dr. Hatem Hussaini. Everybody knows Dr. Hussaini when he was the founder of the Palestine Information Office here in Washington in the last few years, since 1982, I will say, 83. Dr. Hussaini has been in the teaching business. He's a member of the Palestine National Council. He's a professor of international studies at Shah University. Before I go to my colleagues and my guests today, I want to remind you that this is an event of the Foreign Correspondents Association, and I have to do this propaganda every time that we have a speaker here. And anybody who is not a member of the association, he would like to join the association or renew his dues for 1990, please do so. I have application forms I could give you. And the last but not least, before I introduce the speaker, write in your books, June the 6th, at Wednesday, at 2 p.m., June the 6th, Wednesday at 2 p.m., there will be a briefing by the Iranian opposition, the Mujahideen, and it will be in the main lounge of the National Press Club, 2 p.m., June the 6th. This is our next event, and I have to say that. Before I'll give the floor to Mr. Darawshe, I, again, thank you for coming in a busy day like today. And Mr. Darawshe will address the question, what the Palestinian wants, or is there a Palestinian agenda on the Gorbachev-Bush summit? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace to everyone, and I say it in Arabic. Thank you, Abdel Salam. And we believe that we are a real peace camp, that we want to achieve peace for our country, Israel, and peace for our people, the Palestinians. And I'm coming this era to Washington, and when I left after me, very difficult situation after the massacres which had happened in Rishon LeZion, when Palestinian workers were killed by an Israeli young man, and also which was followed by a very brutal and tough policy which caused more casualties between the Palestinians. And the last week, as I got some statistics, 25 Palestinians were killed and about 2,000 were injured during 1 week. It's caused a lot of tension in the Middle East and a lot of confrontation between Palestinians and Arabs in the occupied territories and inside the green borders, inside Israel. And even what is called the Israeli Arabs, the Palestinians who are living in Israel, as whom I represent in the Knesset, all these things brought to a lot of tension in our society, and even to some violence, which caused real damage to the Jewish-Arab relations inside Israel. And we don't want that. We think that it's more useful to strengthen the relations and the real coexistence between Arabs and Jews inside Israel, and to broadcast, to give an example to the area that Arabs and Jews can live together, can cooperate together. But I'm sorry to say that as long as the occupation is continuing and the oppression of the Palestinian people in the occupied territories is continuing, and in the lack of a real push in the peace process, there is a real risk that more violence, more confrontation, and more tension will take place, and it will influence also in a bad way the Jewish-Arab relations inside Israel. Because we have also our domestic causes for a lot of frustration and bitterness. I'm talking now about the Israeli Arabs, the Palestinians who are living inside Israel, as citizens of the country. We have a lot of just complaints about discrimination in the country in all fields. So when it comes to a situation in which the issues come to burst, violence was used, and I'm sorry for any kind of violence. In any way, I believe that there is a need to do every effort to reach a breakthrough. And as I know the situation in the Knesset and in the government, I'm sorry to say that Mr. Shamir and his government today, they are not ready to accept any initiative, even their own initiative. He did not give till now a positive answer to the questions that Mr. Baker has passed to him. And this caused a lot of frustration between the Palestinians and also in the peace camp inside Israel. Many Palestinians do not know today what to wait, for what to wait. So this caused also troubles to the moderate Palestinians in the occupied territories and through the PLO. Many demand to return to the armed struggle because they see that they give everything for peace, They accepted the three preconditions that the Americans has passed, and Israel has passed through the Americans to the PLO. They accepted 242-338, denounced terror, and accepted the right of Israel to exist. They assured their credibility. But they waited for a positive response. It did not come. It did not come. We appreciate that there is a dialogue between the Americans and the Palestinians, which is taking place in Tunis, and I hope that it will continue. Because I hear that there are threats that the American administration, as a result of the miserable attempt which has been yesterday on the coast of Israel, I hope that the American administration will not make a negative step by stopping the dialogue. Because if such an issue will take place, it will bring more bitterness and more frustration between the Palestinians, and it will strengthen extremism and confrontation in the area. I hope that the American administration, the American president, will measure things in a very careful way and very reasonable way, and with all the criticism that we have to the last action, and I'm glad that no casualties from the civilians paid price for this action. And I'm sorry for the souls of any man who was killed. There's no need for more bloodshed in our area. But in the same time, it's a real historical responsibility that the American administration is holding. I hope that they will continue the dialogue and they will raise it in such a way that the Palestinians will see that there are hopes for progress in the peace efforts. The summit, which is taking place here today, I think it has a duty to deal seriously with the Israeli-Arab conflict, with the Palestinian issue. The Palestinians, they wait for positive results, and I hope that Mr. Gorbachev and Mr. Reagan and Mr. Bush will take all measures to assure that there will be a breakthrough in the area, which will lead to negotiation between the Israeli government and the PLO as the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people. And I want to say frankly that all the Palestinian people, they accept the PLO as their sole legitimate representative. And it's a reality that the American administration and the Israeli government must face in a brave way. And I hope that the summit will deal with this issue. I don't believe that there will be peace all over the world without solving all the conflicts and preventing the continuation of tension, especially in the Middle East. And the Palestinian people, as human beings, they have the right for their self-determination. They are fighting to get their independence, to get their freedom, and it's the Israeli interest also, the interest of the Israeli people, to get ready from the occupation. The lasting occupation is very bad to Israel. It brings real damage to the Israeli society, not only for the Palestinians. In any way, we think that all the causes must bring the summit to deal with the situation in the Middle East as an important part of our world. And the Palestinian people and the peace camp in Israel, all of us, we are waiting for the results. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darawshe. We will have the questions and answers after Dr. Hussaini will make his presentation about the Intifada after 30 months. What is next for the Palestinians?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's really an honor for me to share the platform with my brother, Mr. Darawshe, who is really a great leader, a very important leader of the Palestinians inside Israel. I'm honored to be with him. And I think, as you know, this indicates that the Palestinian people are a one people. We have unfortunately been scattered, some of us inside Israel, some of us in refugee camps in Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, some of us in exiles in Europe and the United States. But we are a one people united, as Archbishop Capucci, Hilarion Capucci, said a few days ago on hunger strike in Rome, sent a message by voice to the American people. He said that the Palestinians are united in a struggle for freedom and peace. Capucci, as you know, is a leader of the church. He prays to God to help us achieve freedom and peace in the Holy Land. So we are a one people under the leadership of the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO, which Mr. Darawshe again said is the democratically elected representative of the Palestinian people. For 40 years now, our people have been denied their God-given rights, their human rights, their civil rights, and their national rights. So we have suffered a great tragedy. And as you know, since 1988, when the Intifada, the uprising started, I think that you know the statistics. More than 1,200 Palestinians have been killed. A large percentage of them are children. The report that came out of Sweden indicated that these children, 196 children, are under the age of 16. There are more than 40,000 Palestinians wounded. And as you know, more than 80,000 Palestinians have entered Israeli prisons. The Ansar 3 is the worst of these prisons, and I'm sure my brother Darawshe can give some more details because he has visited and seen some of these prisoners who are there, detained without trial, as you know, for a year, because this is the Israeli law. Unfortunately, the Middle East, the Palestine-Israel conflict is not on the agenda of the Gorbachev-Bush summit. If you notice, the New York Times today didn't even mention it as an item in the topics being discussed by President Bush and President Gorbachev. The Middle East is a very important region of great potential disruption and war. It is a threat to world peace, to international stability, because as you know, if war erupts, God forbid, and nuclear or chemical weapons used in that region, it is a horror that no human being should think about. And as you know, war in the Middle East means also a threat to American interests, American economic, strategic interests in the region. Therefore, President Bush and Gorbachev have a responsibility to discuss the Middle East, the Palestine-Israel conflict, and to stress the need for peaceful solutions. And I think this is the message that came out of the Arab Summit. The Arab leaders, as you know, met in Baghdad, and yesterday sent a very strongly worded message to the summit, to the world, saying that they want peace, but that the situation is intolerable, because the peace initiative, which the PLO has proposed, endorsed by the Arab states, because also the Arab states have made peace proposals. The PLO peace initiative has been rejected, unfortunately, by the Israeli leadership, the Israeli government, and has not been fully backed by the US government. So now, after 2.5 years of the Palestinian peace initiative, the Palestinians stand frustrated and very upset, and they don't understand this American position. Why is it that the US government says that it feels sorry for the death of Palestinians, for the massacre of the Palestinian workers, and says that it is horrified at what happened yesterday near Tel Aviv. It should, I think, strongly condemn the killing of innocent Palestinians, and not only that, but it should translate its words into deeds and stop sending the weapons, the rubber bullets, the tear gas, the money that allows the Israeli army to continue to shoot innocent Palestinians. In other words, we want to see American action. We want to see Soviet-American action in that region so that we can move towards peace. It will be a disaster if the US government uses the veto at the Security Council to veto a resolution to send United Nations observers to help maintain some kind of peace in the occupied territories. It is a position that is contrary to American principles. I think the US should support the sending of United Nations observers or an emergency force to protect civilians, children, unarmed men, women, and children that are being killed daily. It should give the United Nations more authority and power to help move us towards a peace in that region. I must tell you in all honesty that among Palestinians there is a sense of frustration, of despair, and that's why maybe symbolically the 40 Palestinian leaders in Jerusalem have been on a hunger strike now for 18 days. Many of them are in deteriorating health condition, but I think that's an expression of their frustrations. They are telling the world that it is about time that you take action, you end the Israeli military occupation, you begin talks and dialogue between the Israelis and Palestinians so that we can maintain peace. So we are therefore making an appeal to President Bush and Gorbachev to work for a real and lasting peace in the Middle East, to work for justice and peace in the Middle East, to help end the Israeli military occupation, and to bring a solution on the basis of a two states, a Palestinian and Israeli state, so that two peoples can coexist together in equality until the whole regions can move away from war into the 21st century, an era hopefully of economic cooperation and human survival in that region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hussaini. I will begin with Mr. Darawshe to answer one of my first questions, and I take the prerogative to ask the first question. There has been talk that the United States and the Soviet Union would like to disarm of the chemical weapons, and they possibly will sign an agreement today or tomorrow during the summit. What, sir, if I will ask you that you will be asking or calling on these two leaders here in Washington to accept what the Arab world has been saying all along since the Paris Conference or Paris Convention about the chemical weapons. The Arab world is saying that we are ready to dismantle and destroy our chemical weapons stockpiles and arsenals if this will be linked to Israel also put its nuclear weapons under the international community supervision. Can you comment on this, sir?
Our area is so small, and I think that there is no need for chemical and nuclear and other non-conventional weapons. There is no need to add more tension and to add more risks to the safety of all peoples who are living in the Middle East. I wish that all the countries in the area, the Arab countries and Israel, will not gather and develop more weapons, the chemical ones, the nuclear ones, and other weapons. No need for all the weapons race that we see in the area, because any use of any kind of these weapons will distract the area and bring damage to everyone. I believe that when the great powers are trying to reduce the weapons in Europe, in the States, in East Europe, there is a need to prevent to reach an agreement in the Middle East, which will assure putting end to this race between the Arab countries and Israel, which will risk the area and the whole peace, the peace all over the world.
Any questions to Mr. Darawshe? Please raise your hand and identify yourself. From what organization are you, or to Dr. Hussaini? Yes.
Will you comment on the events that transpired on the coast of Israel 2 days ago, 18 hours ago, or 20 hours ago?
Who will address this about what happened in the last days? Yeah, yesterday's event.
You indicated that you seek peace and rapprochement with Israel.
I want to say my own opinion as a Palestinian, as an Israeli citizen, and first of all, as a human being. I condemn totally the attempt to reach the shores of Israel by the way that it has been used. And there's no need for more tension and more violence in the area. We condemn that in a clear way. But I want to note also that those who reached the shore, they did not use rockets. They did not use the weapons that they had with them. They did not use them. And this must also be clarified. If they came to kill, why they did not use the rockets? Why they did not use the same weapons, although some of them has reached the shores? But in any way, I condemn that. I think that there was no need to such stupid actions. At the same time, we must understand that in the absence of political action, in absence of any breakthrough, more violence will take place. And it's unjust at all to continue killing Palestinians in the occupied territories and to use massacres by persons or by the army, and to think that the Palestinians will not respond. I do not justify any violent response against any Israeli civilian or against any Palestinian. I believe there is a need to realize that with the absence of the peace process, it will bring a lot of frustration and bitterness between the Palestinians. So such things will happen from both sides.
Yes.
Associated Press. Now, as you may have heard, sir, the Israeli government wants to use this raid as a reason for the United States to end the Tunis talks with the PLO. And can you tell those of us who are unfamiliar what the connection between this group that came by sea and the PLO is? Maybe more expert watchers of the situation know, but I don't know, and it's not being explained. In other words, is this group, is Mr. Yasser Arafat responsible for this group?
I cannot talk in the name of Mr. Arafat and the PLO. Maybe Mr. Hussaini will be more helpful in this issue. But as I know, as a real fact, that Abu al-Abbas, who was mentioned to be linked to this issue, that he did not use his seat in the executive committee of the Palestinian organization for a long time, and he was not invited to the sessions of the committee. I think that if there is a responsibility, it's on his shoulders. I hope that the PLO leadership and I expect that, will criticize and condemn this action.
Well, I think the position of the PLO is very clear. The position of President Arafat and the PLO is very clear. They strongly condemn terrorism. They are against any acts of terrorism. But at the same time, they say that the Palestinian people have the right to defend themselves, to use whatever means to defend themselves. This is within the Charter of the United Nations, to defend themselves against the Israeli army. And I don't think that position has changed. I really don't have any details about this specific operation to make any comments about it. But this is the position of the PLO.
Any more questions? Yes.
Is there a regret among the PLO that about the recognition by Arafat of the state of Israel and the renunciation of terrorism? Because it appeared to a lot of people that the act of recognition was almost tantamount to capitulation, and that the renunciation of terrorism was categorizing his own struggle, the struggle of his people against the state of Israel, and giving it the label of terrorism, because the beatings are continuing in occupied territories, and even Arafat can't even get a visa to come here. So,
Will you identify yourself, please?
Mubahid Shah.
Okay.
So is this perception correct? Because I've been told by a lot of people that within the Palestinian movement, there's a lot of regret that they may have blundered.
No, again, the position of the PLO, and I would say the majority of the Palestinians, is that they are freedom fighters. They are fighting for their freedom. Much of their struggle, as you know, is non-violent. The Intifada is a non-violent, using non-violent means. Terrorism and terrorist image is a label that the Zionist and Israeli official propaganda tries to put on them, tries to portray them as such. And this has been the position of Chairman Arafat and the PLO for a long time. So there hasn't been any change, maybe a better articulation of this position as a result, of course, of the Palestinian Intifada. But still the question is, how should the Palestinians defend themselves in front of an Israeli army that continues to use live ammunition, tanks, rubber bullets, tear gas to shoot and kill and wound innocent Palestinians in the occupied territories, and to continue to send Israeli planes to the refugee camps in Lebanon, South Lebanon, and other parts of Lebanon, and bomb and kill and wound hundreds of Palestinians. So there is a right to self-defense. Much of the Palestinian reaction of armed struggle is to fight back, to defend themselves. And I think on this situation, it's very clear.
Yes, sir.
My question to Mr. Darawshe.
Yeah.
Dr. Hussaini has mentioned his opinion that the Middle East is very low on the agenda of the Soviet-American summit. Is that the impression you have from talking to people in Washington, the State Department namely? And what do you feel about such benign neglect of sorts of the Middle East in this summit?
Can you say your name, please, and your outfit, for the benefit of the others?
Yeah, Osama Ramdani, Tunisian Press Agency.
I don't know enough details about how much they will give for the Middle East in this summit. We have the hopes, we have the appeals that they will give importance for our area, because we need that. We need the involvement of the big powers. Maybe they will bring leaders in the Middle East to realize that there is a need for a real breakthrough, especially in the Israeli government, Mr. Shamir and his friends. But in the same time, I want to say that during my stay here this week in Washington, during conversations and talks that I made in the State Department, and also this morning with one of the advisors of President Bush, I got the impression that the American administration want to go forward with the peace initiative, and they are waiting for a positive answer from the Israeli government. They wait that Mr. Shamir will form his government and will give the answer so that dialogue will take place and negotiation will take place in Cairo between two delegations, Israeli delegation and the Palestinian delegation. I hope that the summit will help to bring the two parties, the Israelis and the Palestinians, to sit near the table and to negotiate as human beings instead of continuing with the present status quo.
Yes.
Yes, this is Salem from Wafa Palestine News Agency. And my question is to Dr. Hussaini. Since we know that Abu al-Abbas, who claimed this responsibility on the latest incident, his membership in the Palestinian Executive Committee being suspended after the Equilora, did you think that Arafat, as the president of the state of Palestine, and the chairman of the Palestinian Executive Committee, which preside over a coalition of Palestinian groups loyal to Palestine and other Arab states, is he able to control some elements in Lebanon, in Syria, in Iraq, in Libya, in Egypt, and everywhere, so to be blamed on any Palestinian action anywhere?
I hate to keep going back to this incident because I think there are other more important topics here. But let me again say that from my quick reading of the news, we still don't know who is responsible for this attempt on the beaches of Tel Aviv. It seems Israeli officials, Aarons and the Rabin are trying to say that the PLO and President Arafat is responsible, and obviously you know why. Because their aim is to totally destroy the PLO, discredit it, and they don't want to negotiate with the PLO. So this is Israeli propaganda. Again, I want to stress that President Arafat and the PLO is not responsible for this kind of an operation. At least nothing has been said to indicate or to show that they are responsible. If Abu Abbas' name has come up, it has to be verified. And I think, however, this incident should be put in a certain context. That I think the situation in general in the region is deteriorating. The US government in the last year has not shown any serious movement towards peace. There is frustration among the Palestinians, and therefore you should expect violence, counter-violence in that region. The Israeli army and the Israeli government is escalating the violence. And I think the Palestinians have been highly self-restrained in the last year in the face of this escalating Israeli military violence. And I gave you some statistics. In other words, who is going to protect the Palestinian people? If the US says that there should be no UN protection, it's going to veto or it's against the Security Council sending UN forces to protect the Palestinians, and that the Palestinians cannot carry guns and protect themselves when the Israeli army breaks a door and enters a home and beats people inside their home, who's going to protect them? So is the world telling us that the Palestinians should just sit and be shot and accept to be shot, men, women, and children in the streets and inside their homes and not defend themselves? Now the 40 Palestinian leaders in Jerusalem are on a hunger strike, as one last resort, and I heard Faisal Hussaini, one of the Palestinian leaders in Jerusalem, saying that there is a limit to our patience, that we are losing hope. He didn't say it he made it part of an appeal for an urgent action by the US, by the Soviet Union, by the Security Council, and by the Arab states. That's why, again, I think that the summit, the Bush-Gorbachev summit, should urgently look at the Middle East also, should put a ban on the selling and shipping of nuclear, chemical, and other weapons to the countries of the region, Arab and Israel, and should send United Nations observers or an emergency force to protect the Palestinian civilians so that we can begin the peace negotiations between the Palestinians and Israelis and hopefully move very quickly towards a solution on the basis of two states. On the issue of the immigration of Soviet Jews, again, I want to be clear here, as a Palestinian, and also I think I reflect the views of the PLO, most of the Palestinians. We are for the freedom of movement of Soviet Union Jews. We are against discrimination against Soviet Jews in the Soviet Union. They have every right to live in full dignity in the Soviet Union, the right to leave the Soviet Union, and to immigrate to any countries they wish to go to, including the United States. But they should not be forced to go to Israel, and especially the occupied territories, to take the farms, the homes, and the lands of the Palestinian people. I think Israel, by encouraging massive immigration of Soviet Jews, forced immigration of Soviet Jews to Israel, means that it wants to expand, wants to put some of them in South Lebanon, maybe in the future in Jordan. It's a design for an expanded Israel, a greater Israel, and therefore the Arab people and the Arab governments view this as a threat, as you saw from the views of the Arab leaders at the summit. And I think really Soviet Union Jews should be free to come to America, this country of freedom and human dignity, and live here in full freedom.
Yes.
Question for Dr. Hussaini. Considering the large numbers of Soviet Jews that are coming, and that they've settled already in East Jerusalem in the building of large numbers of housing for the Soviet Jews in East Jerusalem, what do you think at what point will the Arab countries say enough is enough? And when they say that, what will the effect of that pronouncement be?
I think they have already said that at the Baghdad summit. If you notice, at the Baghdad summit, a number of Arab states called for an oil embargo, called for some action directed to American economic interests. There were very strong voices at the Baghdad summit. The communique maybe did not reflect that, but the final communique said that the US bears a responsibility. You are right that more Soviet Union Jews are being settled in East Jerusalem, although not in that large numbers. You know the State Department position about that. President Bush and the State Department clearly said that they do not approve of settling Soviet Jews in the occupied Palestinian territories. However, the US Congress is discussing allocating $400 million to settle Soviet Union Jews in Israel and the occupied territories. And I think this is a grave mistake to allocate so much money to bring Soviet Jews, to uproot Palestinians, and to put Soviet Union Jews on the land of Palestinians who will be expelled and God knows will be sent where. I think this money should be used in this country, in American states, for better housing, for minorities, for the homeless. Why give so much money to Soviet Union Jews and refuse to allocate money to the homeless and those who need better housing in this country? And I think in that sense, maybe I'm reflecting the feelings of the American people. As you know, the American people do not support the Israeli military occupation, are very frustrated with the continued Israeli killing of Palestinian children and civilians. More than 55% of the American people and increasing number of American Jews are speaking against the policies of the Shamir government. We feel that, we know that. I think my brother Darawshe also has felt that in his talks with American Jewish leaders. But unfortunately, this is not having an impact, the needed impact, on the State Department and the White House. And we hope that there could be some impact so that we can see American action and not only American words.
Can I follow up with a question for Mr. Darawshe? How do you believe that the status of East Jerusalem should be resolved?
First of all, whole solution, which I believe that there is a need to establish a Palestinian independent state near Israel in the occupied territories in the West Bank and Gaza. And when I say the occupied territories and the West Bank, East Jerusalem is part of the West Bank, of the occupied territories. And any solution must assure the rights of both peoples, the Palestinians and the Israelis, in Jerusalem. And my option that West Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, East Jerusalem must be the capital of Palestine, the independent Palestinian state. But there is no need for fences to return back, and we must keep the unity of the city. The sovereignty must be divided between the two peoples. But there is no need to divide the city and to put fences, as I mentioned. I believe there is a possibility to solve the issue of Jerusalem by keeping the unity of the city and dividing the sovereignty for the two peoples.
Just about Jerusalem, please. I just want to add one more thing about Jerusalem, because really I was born in Jerusalem, and I am from Jerusalem, and my parents still live there, many of my relatives. I just want to stress that I think that city, that holy city, should be really above politics. Jerusalem is a most beautiful, holy city, holy to Jews, Christians, and Muslims. It should be an open city, open to Jews, Christians, and Muslims, to live in freedom, to pray. There should be full respect for the holy places. As you know, a number of Israeli fanatics tried to occupy a building owned by the church, which caused a great uproar among Arab Christians and Christian leaders in the West. So I think it's very important to look at Jerusalem from this perspective and try to put it somehow above politics and strengthen this view. And let me just finally make one last note. I am talking, of course, about a two-state solution where Israelis and Palestinians can coexist together. And I hope that would be achieved soon. It is a pragmatic, practical solution. But I think we should have a vision for the 21st century in less than 10 years. A vision of the Middle East, which I think should not be divided into little states of a little Syria and Lebanon and Palestine and Israel, but a region with open movement, economic cooperation, freedom of movement for people, because I think the challenge in the 21st century is that of human survival. And if we can somehow channel our money, rather than spending it on the development of nuclear weapons and chemical weapons, channel that money for economic development, for sharing the limited water resources, the limited economic resources, the pollution of our environment, this is the real issue in the Middle East. It's human survival, that we are one human family, Jews, Christians, and Muslims, Israelis and Palestinians. We are one human family, and we stand today at crossroads, either peace and a great potential of coexistence and tolerance, or war and a nuclear disaster which no one should imagine or even think about.
Any more questions? Yes, Gigi.
Mr. Darawshe, you must have been asked this many times in your campaign for office. When the state of Palestine is created, will you, assuming you're a Palestinian, also will you change your citizenship?
I'm a Palestinian who is living in Israel as an Israeli citizen. I will continue to be with this status. I want a Palestinian state for the Palestinians who are living in the occupied territories or in the diaspora. But I will continue as citizen of the state of Israel. And I want to contribute to achieve a real breakthrough which will lead to peaceful compromise, peaceful solution between the two peoples, because it's the interest of our people, the interest of our country, the interest of the whole area. And I doubt if there will be any solution which will be a permanent and just solution without assuring the national rights of both the Israelis and the Palestinians. In any way, I'll continue to try to contribute to bridge the gap between the two parties, because it's the interest of the whole area. And I believe, as an optimist, that it can be achieved. I want to continue the same point that my brother Hatem mentioned about the comprehensive solution which I see. I believe that there is a need for unity in the area, and I'm talking about a need to form a confederation, which I brought it in a bill in 1987 to the Knesset, confederation of 3 states, 3 peoples, confederation which will include Israel, Palestine, and Jordan, which will assure the security needs of Israel, the national rights, the right for self-determination for the Palestinian people, and the stability of Jordan. And they can form some kind of Middle East Benelux